Hi, welcome to body maintenance. You can get started lying down, or if you'd prefer, you can start seated, and we'll close our eyes. Just beginning to bring some awareness to our breath. And just notice where you're starting to feel the breath. Maybe it's the chest, maybe it's the belly. And we'll start to make the breath a little bit bigger. As you inhale, think about the torso expanding in all directions. So ribs will expand side to side and front to back as you inhale. As you exhale, practice letting all of the breath out. Come onto your back, getting ready for bridge pose. Knees will be bent, feet are on the mat. You can have the heels as far away from the hips as you'd like, but make sure that your toes are pointing straight forward so the feet are parallel. We'll make a fist with our hands today. So bring your fist to your ASISs, or those frontal pelvic points. So we're just pressing down a little bit onto those pelvic points. And in return, we'll start to lift up the tailbone. And you can add as much pressure as you want in your fist, pressing into those ASISs. And then continue to lift, but keep that tailbone curling up, and we'll use the glutes to lift up. So it doesn't need to be a big lift. You can be as low as you want, as long as you're feeling the effort in the glutes. So with the fist, just keep pressing down and keep lifting your hips up into your fist so that everything's just kind of working together, keeping the pelvis neutral. So you can imagine those fists drawing together. That will firm the glutes a little bit more, starting to engage the deep low belly, and then making sure that the front ribs are down. So you can actually cup your ribs and just kind of hold them down to make sure they don't lift up. So you want the front ribs down, glutes firm, setting up that neutral pelvis for your movement, lowering down with control. So start at your upper or mid back, and then just think about tiptoeing your spine down. So really slowly lowering down. Feet will stay down, and we'll cup the skull, keeping that neutral pelvis and that long spine. Even here, front ribs down. Take an inhale. As you exhale, draw your elbows in, lift up off your shoulders. Now look down at those pelvic points, the same place we just had our fist. Imagine those two pelvic points drawing in. Maybe lifting up a little bit higher. Inhale to lower. Exhale, draw the elbows in, lift up off your shoulder blades. Draw those two pelvic points in, check in with the front ribs. This time we'll reach the arms up and then protract the scapula. So we'll stay where we are, but reach your arms even more so that you feel the scapula moving away from the spine. Hands come back behind the head. Inhale to lower. Exhale, draw your elbows in, lift up off the shoulder blades. Draw the pelvic points in, check in with the front ribs. Arms reach, and then again, protract the scapula so that the scapula is moving away from the spine. Really reaching, reaching, reaching. Hands come back behind the head. Inhale to lower. Release your hands down. Start to warm up your right hip. So we'll begin to make some circles. They don't need to be big, so we want to make sure that the pelvis doesn't move with it. So the spine is down and the movement is just in the hips. So we're not shifting side to side in the pelvis. Circle both directions. And then flex your right foot, cross it over your left thigh. Take your right hand, press your right thigh away from you. Make sure that your low back is down, front ribs are down, chin towards your throat. Release it down. Pick up the left foot, and we'll bring that circle movement into the left hip. So again, make it pretty small so that your weight isn't shifting side to side. So the only thing that's moving is that left hip joint. Circle the other direction. Flex your left foot, cross it over your right thigh. Make sure your low back is down, chin toward the throat, front ribs down. Left hand will press into that left thigh, so you can press it away a little bit if that feels good. Keeping the spine long, neutral neck. Release it down. Make your way into a seated position. Hands will come to the top of the shoulders and we'll roll one shoulder at a time. You might hear some clicking. You might hear some kind of Rice Krispie sounding noises. That's just fascia, and we need it to move and stay lubricated and mobile so that it can move better. Bring your arms up with the palms facing forward. You can have the elbows bent, especially if the arms up feels really constricted in the neck or upper back. So you can bend the elbows as much as you want. And we're just gonna work some shoulder rotation. So we'll start to rotate the pinkies forward. Maybe the palms face each other. Maybe they can rotate a little bit more. And then do the opposite. So then come back and thumbs will come forward. Rotate as much as you can and keep alternating. So we're just internally and externally rotating the shoulders, getting some movement there. Make a fist with your hand and we'll circle, circling the fist in both directions. Extend the wrist, so palms face forward. And right away, that might be a bit of a stretch in this position. Most of us live in a flexed position with our wrists, with typing and with all the things we're grabbing. So having that wrist extension is really important, and this might already feel like a lot. If you think you could do a little bit more, really think about pressing the heels of your hands forward. So going further into that extension and spreading the fingers. So we don't actually have muscles in our hands, but we have fascia. So we want to be able to spread it out and make sure it doesn't get stuck. So just keep spreading. It's a big stretch. You can exhale through your mouth. Spread the fingers as much as you can. And then we're gonna shake. So just shake it out. You can do this anytime. And we'll come onto all fours. Coming onto table pose or quadruped. Shoulders over your wrist, hips over your knees. So you can always shorten the stance a little bit more than you think. Most of the time we don't really have any awareness of where our shoulder is over the wrist, and we're much further forward, which as we start to move is not stable for our shoulder. So we need to make sure that you pull it back, you can look down. It's important to use your eyes so that you know where you are in space. And we'll move through cat-cow. So as we move through cat-cow, we're starting to move the back. Moving the back muscles, the fascia, allowing the spine to move. You can pause anywhere if that feels good. If you need a little extra time in one of these two positions or anything in between. Come back to that neutral position. And with the hands down on the mat, we'll do that action of energetically dialing the hands out and then pulling them back a little bit. So you can just imagine you have your hands on a plate and the plate starts to spin and then you slide it back. That's gonna help the rotator cuff and everything around the shoulder help to stabilize. So when you're weight bearing, shoulders over your wrist, dial the hands out and then pull the hands back. So that's a much more stable position and will allow the ribs to move side to side. As we do this, try to keep your arms straight. Trying to press into both hands evenly so that as we move, we don't bend and lose that stable shoulder. So just the ribs move side to side. Step your right foot through your hands. Left knee stays down. Left foot can be down, or you can tuck the left toes if that feels all right. And we'll lift up into a low lunge or a half kneel. So checking with your pelvis, you can do one hand in front, one hand behind. Compress them together. So we always want this co-contraction with the front and back of the body where everything's working to stabilize the spine. So front and back body, everything's working. Good, and then we'll bring the hands forward, finding that same wrist extension, and then press away, finding that protraction of the scapula and coming back to neutral. So we're holding everything pretty rigid and pretty strong in the lower body. So my pelvis is neutral, my glutes are working, I'm getting a big stretch in that left hip flexor, and I'm adding this movement for my scapula. So in this wrist extension with the palms forward, I'm pushing away and then coming back. Hands will lower, step it back to that table pose, left foot steps through. Right foot can stay down or you can tuck the right toes. Lifting up for that low lunge. So right away, big stretch in that right hip flexor. We're not sinking down, but everything's lifting up. Neutral pelvis. Glutes are active. Find that wrist extension, palms forward. Make sure everything stays really firm in the low body, and we'll do that same thing, protracting the scapula and coming back to neutral. So we're pressing the palms forward, feeling the scapula move away from the spine and then coming back to their, hopefully, neutral position. Few more. Hands lower down. Step it back to table. You're welcome to take another round of cat-cow here, or if it feels okay on your knees, you can sit back onto your heels. Hands will stay down and we'll do some thoracic cat-cow, which means less movement in the lumbar spine or the pelvis, more in the thoracic spine or the mid-back. So try to find that same cat-cow movement here. It will be much smaller because we don't have the help of tipping the pelvis forward and back. So we have less movement in the thoracic spine in general. So anytime we can bring any type of movement or rotation into the mid-back, that's going to be really helpful. Come back to any comfortable seat. Reaching the right arm up. Feel that right scapula lift. So similar to when we were pressing forward, you want the scapula to lift up this time. Head will release to the left. If this is enough of a stretch in the whole right side of the body, you can pause here or take it into a little bit more of a side bend, but nothing's going to change in the pelvis. Just the upper body is going to reach a little bit further toward the left. Good. Come into a cactus arm, and we'll make some circles here. So I'm trying to move from my scapula. The shoulder moves with it, but I'm not initiating the movement just in the shoulder joint. So it's a bigger movement involving more of the upper back and just holding this cactus arm shape with the elbow bent. Release it down. Left arm reaches. Feel the left scapula, left side of the ribs lift. Release the head to the right so that I get a stretch in the left side of the neck. Stick with this or take it into a side bend. Keep the head relaxed. Good, come back up, bring that left arm to your cactus arm shape and try to feel the movement start at the scapula. So at the upper back, that's where those circles are going to start. So if I was just moving the shoulder, that would look a little bit different and there's not as much going on here. So we want to involve as many things as we can when we move so that we can start to move a little bit more efficiently and more integrated. Release it down. Let your ear drop to the right shoulder. And then the left shoulder. So we're sitting tall, working on our posture, adding a little bit of movement into the neck. And now we'll bring the chin down, chin up, chin down, chin up. Good, returning to center. Thank you for joining me for body maintenance.